This is no sub story. This is a common story. And it's exactly what I mean when I say you guys are building warriors. You would not believe what people with trauma go through. And how we never even have a chance to snap back from it. So I was born in 84. My mum was 18. My dad was 17. He was extremely violent. He got me drunk. He was a skinhead, hanging out with skinheads with a Nazi tattoo on his arm. At the age of 2, they split, and he took me down to Mildura from Queensland. And I was with him for 4 years. Those 4 years alone, no one should endure, let alone a child that young. Those early developmental stages of my life where I should have been with my mother, I should have been at school, in a warm bed, feeling safe. No. We hitchhiked from Mildura up to Mount Isa over those 4 years. Hitchhiking, walking, buses, trains. I saw drugs and animal rituals and sex with so many women, even at bus stops for like cigarettes. There were so many things. I was hoarding food and money. I was teaching myself how to cook, how to read, how to count. That's why without going to kindy and like prep, and even like doing year 1 properly, he tried to put me in year 1 for like a day or something. I ran up the street traumatized getting chased because he had me dressed like a boy with a boy's haircut and told me, boys don't cry. The girls wouldn't let me in the bathroom. They wanted me to pull my pants down to prove I was a girl. It was so traumatizing, that alone. He had told me that my mum wasn't my mum, and all these women were like, this is your mum, this is your mum, this is mum. By the time I was 6, he turns up to her and he goes, actually, she is your mum. We're going to stay with her for a while. He was gone when I woke up the next day. I was covered in lice, school sores, had infected bandages on my leg. I was flinching at every little thing. Sorry. Kept hoarding the food and the coins under my bed. Because I'd been thrown off a bridge, locked in a cupboard, told to open my mouth when it's raining, or suck on a stone, swallow your spit when thirsty. Beaten, thrown downstairs. I got bullied on the emissions by the Indigenous. I was the only white kid. Got bashed by those guys too. Getting called white wanker. 9/10 of the law, eh? I was seeing a psychologist by the time I was 6. I remember Mum taking me out of school and taking me to a shrink. We moved around. She had lots of different boyfriends. Every time a lease was up, we just moved. The cat ran away every time. And she'll, to this day, never admit that she didn't want me. She'll say it's all in my head because he told me that she didn't want me. He planted the seed, absolutely. It was her job to nurture me and make me feel safe and loved and wanted. No. As soon as I was back with her, she had a holiday booked. She didn't cancel that holiday because she just got her kid back from the streets after 4 years. She left that kid with a boyfriend who she'd been with for a short time while she went over to New Zealand. He cheated on her while she was over there. She dragged me around to the woman's house to abuse me with me right there. She had the short fuse. Couldn't play a game with her without her like losing her shit, throwing the board game, throwing the controller. Road rage in the car, chasing people, abusing them. I was so embarrassed to have friends over. Boys and girls for different reasons. She was always losing it in front of the girls. She would like fall asleep on the couch, but she wouldn't be wearing underwear. And like, you could just see what she had for breakfast. I'm like, I can't bring friends over. Like, she'd fall asleep for hours in a coma and not wake up. She had glandular fever. Okay, cool. You were still a fucking mum and you were shit. A lot of her boyfriends were just shit as well. Some were violent. By the age of 12, on my 12th birthday, I spent it alone because she was in her room with a guy she had met at a party the night before, at a singles party, who she like became obsessed with. A few months later, next thing you know, I'm getting babysat with a nanny on the Gold Coast while she goes over there to the UK to visit him because he was a British soldier who was on holiday when she met him. And then a few months later, she's putting down the dog, ripping me out of school, getting rid of everything we own. Our cat goes to my grandparents and hurls me off to the UK for this guy she's known like briefly that she met that year, who turned out to be an absolute fucking psycho, violent, police involved. While we were in the UK, I tried to take my life because I pulled a knife on that guy. I watched this guy lock my mum in a room for days and feed her through the door. Take her own dog off her and not let her pat her own dog. He put locks on the TV so we couldn't watch it to punish us. She was a shift worker and she would sometimes work till like 11 or something. So because he knew that I was witnessing all this crazy shit and all the violence, he would bribe me. He would undermine her. I'd be grounded and he'd be like, don't worry, just be back in this time before she gets back, and give me money to go to the cinema and stuff. Like while I was grounded for things. I never really saw my mum get drunk, but I remember I saw her get tipsy at stuff. She tried to like be good in that sense when she'd go out. But I remember one time in the UK, she went out with him. He came back and my mum wasn't with him. And she never came back that night. And when I was walking my push bike out up the pathway to go to school with no idea where she was, there she was, hiding under the bushes, passed out. She was drunk off her face, but she was also terrified to go inside. He broke her. He fucking broke her. I got sent home on a plane alone from the UK back to Brisbane to my grandparents. But I had been in contact with my dad's mum, and she's like, your dad's a changed man now. You got siblings. He's got a home. And I'm like, oh, a family, lovely. And like sold it to me, all the things. And I was like hating on my mum. So as soon as my grandparents went to work, they snuck me out. That grandma, her friends, snuck me out behind my other grandparents' back on a plane down to Phillip Island. I called my grandma while she's like on her lunch at work. She's like asking about chores at the house, and I'm like, I'm on Phillip Island. She nearly died. What the fuck? I've run away. You didn't run away, you flew away. You're 14. Yeah, I'm with my dad. Within a few days, I realized he hadn't changed. Well, actually, I realized straight away within a few hours, but within a few days, I'd asked my mum or that week if I could come back, because I was like, and she said, no, you made your bed, lie in it, you're doing year 10 there. He was a monster. My stepmom was a monster. The only time I was allowed out of the house was school and back, work and back, They kept all my pay and my free meals from work. I didn't get them myself. And I wasn't allowed at friends' houses. Friends were allowed over. Then he'd like perv on them, and you could smell weed coming out of his. And it's like, I don't want friends over. So I just had this one friend who was like a daughter of his friend. So many of his mates were just sleazy. One of them had a crush on me. One of them was telling me about dreams that he was having about me. I was 15. One of them tried to make me give him a hand job when he stayed over drunk one night while my dad was passed out in the next room. And then denied it. And I was just a lying whore. Just like a lying slut and cunt like my mum. When I was with my mum and their family, there was no affection, no love, no nurturing. There was nothing to help me undo the things he had said or done. It was just such high expectations of where my system was at, where my heart was at, where my trust was at. I don't know how I survived it, because they were really like cold, eye for eye, bitchy, nasty, entitled, selfish bunch of people. I can actually see why my dad hates them, but doesn't mean he should have been telling me that, you know. I was depressed. I had anxiety. I tried to take my life at 13 while I was in the UK. I'll never forget Mum. She thought I was attention seeking. Comes into the hospital. I lose overtime for this. Fuck you. So by the age of 17, her and I were fighting so much. I'd already come back from Phillip Island. That 1 year of hell with my dad. And then Jenny's like wanting to send me back there because I couldn't live with my mum. Mum said I could, but we were fighting so much and I hated her at that time. I fucking hated her. And I begged not to go back there to Phillip Island. Jenny said, you don't have a choice. You're 17, you're underage. Your mum's condoned it. My mum denies having that conversation. She said she would have never let me go there. But I went around to her house because Jenny said, your mum knows you're going. I went around to pick up my stuff to take because I'd been living on the streets with just a bit of stuff. And I'd asked my mum to pack my things in a bag for me. She opened the door, 2 garbage bags with my stuff, and she emptied the stuff from the bathroom bin in there as well. It was a really disgusting thing to do. So when I got back and I was going through my things and there was like all these clumps of hair and toilet paper and like I think there was even a bit of like fruit, like a banana or some shit in there. I was like, that's a low blow. That's my mum. No matter how much we fought, that was fucking gross. So I went around to every public bin and I got so much rubbish and I went back and I tipped it all over her lawn. And I took my 2 garbage bags and I got on a bus to go to Phillip Island, but it stopped. I got one first to Melbourne and then I had to drag my 2 garbage bags from one side of Melbourne all the way to the other, and they split. And I couldn't carry all my stuff and I was trying to like juggle it and I was like losing my shit in the middle of Melbourne. And like I remember there being this group of Asians who were tourists with their cameras and everything, and they were all just staring at me and like while I was like losing my shit trying to like gather all my belongings in these bags that had just split. I ended up cracking it so hard I like flung my bag at these tourists and all my stuff and just like threw my clothes in a psycho tantrum and went fuck it and like stormed off. Did like a block, came back, all my shit was still there, and the Asians were just standing in a circle around it like they were guarding it. And they actually helped me scoop it up, and I like tied knots in the bag, and they actually helped me carry it to the bus place that I had to go to. And then I got on a bus from Melbourne to wherever it is I had to meet him. some bus stop close to cows or whatever. And that's where it began. I got there and my stepmom and siblings weren't there. And he told me he'd been waiting for this moment since birth. I was going to replace her while she was away. And he said so many fucking things like, don't worry, Daddy's not going to be pinching your ass on barbecues, at family barbecues. You know, and he would say things like, the only thing we can't do is have a baby. And, you know, you're my soulmate. I've been waiting for you to mature. I was going to come on your face, but I saw the look in your eyes. You were so scared. That's why I did it on your stomach. Stuff like that. Threatened to kill me so many times because I kept trying to escape. I remember having all these, like, scratch marks and everything, like little mini chunks from my fingernails all around my mouth because I was gripping my mouth so fucking hard every time he tried to kiss me or, like, lick my face. He tore my asshole. I had, like, stitches in my ass, pubic lice. Sarah Hall from Victims of Crime said it would be too traumatizing to testify, and they had enough evidence for incest. Because I had to strategize to get out of there. After like 5 or 6 days or whatever it was, I was like, I can't escape. I have to trick him. So I went into this full survival mode, and I just changed my vibe. And I sat there like, I went out there and I actually made him lunch after trying to get away and run away and fight him. It's like, and I think he actually thought he must have broken my will, and I just finally surrendered. He was letting me make him lunch, and he eased off on me. And then I was like, hey, I should ask Big John if I could get my old job back. He thought it was a great idea. Gave me the phone so I could call Big John. Big John's Pizza. And I called up John and arranged a time, and that's how he let me out. But I didn't. I went to this old couple's house who I knew. Actually, the old man who had told me he'd been having dreams about me. Him and his wife, because I knew his wife would help. And they did. So, because it was incest, the whole family on his side were like, you're a filthy whore, you fucked your dad. And he's like, yeah, she did it to set me up. I lost my cousins, niece, uncles, aunties. I got called a dirty whore. My grandma. My stepmom. All just gone, and all this shame and filth. And then Sarah Hall going, oh, too bad it didn't happen in Queensland. You would have got 10 times the amount. There's so much incest down here. I got 7,500. No apology. So, oh, well. Here, try see this shrink. This male shrink who scared the fuck out of me. And then a female shrink who was like crying, getting all emotional, saying how, you know, all her sob stories and everything. You know, these are people who were paid to keep us safe, who are trained to help kids out of that thing. And she sent me to him when I was begging. No one was accountable. I was just expected to just get over it with a bit of therapy and $7.5 grand. That's it. So I started self-medicating. And as soon as I went to, turned 18, got a passport and went to America, my visa ran out and I just stayed. I was living the good life. I was in a Mexican community just running a market stall, smoking weed, selling weed. It's when I was I'd started doing drugs on the Gold Coast. I'd been introduced in speed, but then I came off it and realized I don't need stimulants. I tried coke, it wasn't for me. I landed on things like ketamine, MDMA, cannabis, psychedelics. Oh, gee. Wonder why now when they do a brain scan, they say, you have a perfect brain. It doesn't look like you've done any drugs. I'm doing all the ones that you're using now to fix people who have my disorder, you dumb shits. So it was in America when my physical symptoms actually started. I was walking through St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, and my legs buckled. I started throwing up blood. Muscles were seizing. I went to the university campus, nurse. They told me to go straight to hospital, but because I was illegally living there, I got too scared to stick around and go back for results and stuff. So they hydrated me, gave me whatever they gave me at the time. Did a bunch of tests that I was meant to go in for, but I got too scared, so we never went back. And yeah, so I ended up leaving, and bringing the girlfriend I had with me over. We went to Canberra, still doing MDMA. When I was in Canberra, I had 2 jobs, but I was just really getting into the MDMA at this stage. MDMA and weed when I was in Canberra. And towards the end of there, after 2 years of being there, my grandfather, his cancer came back and he was diagnosed with only a few months to live. So I instantly quit my job, got a car. I was living in a hotel where half the hotel room was just full of appliances and gadgets that I was buying every fortnight and whatever in my pay. And I was just trying to get everything because my ex and I were saving up to get our own place. But we'd had this really cushy deal in a hotel room that had everything in it and everything paid for. And it was right in the city where we were both working and we were making heaps of money in cash in hand. So we were just like, we didn't need a car and we were just saving money and buying all the little things that we could fit in a hotel so that when it was time to move, we'd literally just need to get the big furniture items. But then my granddad only had a couple of months to live. So we went, fuck that, got a car, shoved all those gadgets in it and just hightailed it down to Tassie instantly, where he ended up dying within a few days of me getting there. My grandfather was the only father figure I'd ever had in my life, really. And he was the only person in the family who didn't make me feel like shit. But that's because he was a miserable man in the corner with no backbone because he was controlled and he had no voice. He was a good man. He had his past where he was drinking and violent in his earlier days. And that's what happened. A 180 went around and my grandma just went to the other extreme. And he just never got forgiven and was just basically a fucking prisoner after that. But him dying, I went to Tassie and I ended up staying there for 7 months. And that's when I started getting really fucked up. I was partying heaps. But I was still functioning on MDMA during the day, cannabis during the day. But because I was hanging around with party people and I just wanted to let go, I was doing, 4 or 5 times the amount the MDMA everyone else was doing. But I was also doing it on top of tequila shots and, smoking weed and mixing other things. Maybe we've got these MDMAs, ones are mixed with a bit of coke, or this one's a bit of smack, or we were just dabbling in all kinds of shit just to the people I was hanging out, the main guy I was hanging out with, he had been so abused and he had more trauma than I fucking did. And he's a meth head now. And I'm I was partying so hard and I ended up leaving because I didn't want to go down that path. I knew if I didn't leave and get out of that party scene, I would end up like how he is now. So those drugs that I was so addicted to, that I was building up such a high had such a high tolerance, they're all used now. So I ended that at 28. My somatic symptoms were all put down to drugs. I had every test under the sun. I had a radioactive egg, sleep studies, every pill, every fucking GP had given me, all the different types of therapies. It's, none of it worked, but also I was just getting worse and worse and worse, and they kept blaming it on the drugs. So then I was like, fuck yes. And I wanted to stop partying, and the thing is, it was like all or nothing. I didn't just stop partying and stick to just self-medicating so I could function during the day. I just went cold turkey on everything. First I went to Sydney, that was shit. But that's when I was coming off everything, and I just went fucking mental for like 9 months in Sydney. Because I was coming off all those hardcore use of drugs for so long, I drank a lot more. And I was in Newtown where it was all bars and lesbians. So that was actually a period of time where I mentioned in a previous video where I was slutty, and because I'd just done escorting for 3 months to get myself out of Hobart. I had a few clients. One of them I didn't even sleep with. He had weird fetishes. And it was all around humiliation. He had big fucking mummy issues. So it was doing things like go to the beach and like beat the shit out of him and tie him up and referee him lose a game and like, call him names and walk him like a dog and all this sort of shit. But I made a shit ton of money, got out of Hobart, went to Sydney, just partied way too much, went to Darwin, and that's when I really started getting my shit together. I got a job up in the immigration centres. I started out in admin and property, but because I was so hypervigilant and I was catching people out and dobbing people left, right, and centre, I got poached and taken to the high security male one, NIDC, where I was doing intel gathering and risk assessments and sit rep reports to the regional manager and chief of immigration and head of police and stuff. Like they had their own special office that no one was allowed in with the codes. And I was in there. I was so fucking chuffed. It was so amazing. But I was just uncovering so much toxicity and corruption. And then I went over to Wickham Point, and that's when I got to see a lot of the real corruption. And that's when I got really so sick from stress. And that's when it's really obvious that somatic symptoms are real, because I was under the insane amount of stress with that job. And then I had a Filipino girlfriend who I met in Darwin. Her visa ran out, and on the day that I was taking her to the airport to go back to the Philippines, she decides to tell me, oh, by the way, I've got a husband. I was like, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, my parents sold me to him when I was 19. He's like 50-something, this American guy. I've got a green card. He pays my family. And I've become a chef to travel the world so I don't have to stay with him. And every 6 months I meet up with him in a hotel for a few days, give him what he wants, and carry on. And that's where I was when I said I was going back home to Manila when I went on that holiday a couple of months. And he said I was weird when I got back, because I knew. When you are a lesbian and you are sleeping with a woman and then they go and sleep with a dude, you can tell what goes on down there, man. No offense, ladies, but you can tell it's very different down there. And then she told me that she didn't want to be with him. This was all at the airport while she was leaving. She then gets on the plane, contacts me from the Philippines. She's in Cebu. She's like, I don't want to go back to Tacloban, but I have to. And she said, I want to leave him and divorce him. I want to be with you. No shit, she divorced him, showed me the papers, and then he started stalking her. And then the tsunami hit Tacloban. She was in Cebu, but her family were there. She lost 6 relatives, the family home, the family business. She had her 86-year-old grandma on a roof for days with dead bodies floating around the water. She had her brother, his wife, and he had 2 kids. He was holding on to the baby, and she had the toddler clinging to her legs. He watched his wife and the toddler get ripped out by the tsunami and the baby ripped out by his arms. That family got destroyed. right as she was divorcing the rich husband with the money. And I was like, fuck. So I took that on. I, I'm so glad that I told her not to go to Tacloban. I just had a feeling. I said, don't get on the plane, don't go, stay in Cebu. And then the tsunami hit, and the tail end even hit Cebu. And she was out of reception for a while, and I was just worried. I started doing a fundraiser at work at the detention centers, and I got Jetstar to waive hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilos of weight so that I could take, because in Manila they had a massive center where donations were getting sent from all around the world to help from the tsunami. So I took over all these boxes and everything and went part of that mission. And then I joined the Filipino community in Darwin and went to this massive hall where all these Filipinos were getting up and giving speeches about their families and their losses to get a check for like $1,000 from this community thing, because there are so many of them. And I went and gave a speech as the only white person in there on behalf of their family and got them this like $1,000. Like, I went full mission mode. But then I took her on as like more like a charity case. I felt sorry for her, and I wanted to show her that she wasn't a piece of meat. I got her an apartment in Singapore while I was working in Darwin. Once I left the detention center because it was so toxic, I started working, doing some other government work and surveillance. And I managed to get 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off so I could work hard, make a shitload of money for 2 weeks, and then fly to Singapore to be with her. And then I found out she was prostituting in Singapore because she couldn't find chef work. And I still forgave her. She went to Guam because she had a green card, which is near Micronesia. So I saved up heaps where I was working. I went to Guam for 3 months, got my TESOL, and then we both left Guam together. We traveled around Asia just to be together and find where we could, a country that we'd both be able to work in. I didn't have a degree. I'd started and attempted 2, but couldn't finish them. I ended up getting a job in the heart of China, the ancient capital, Xi'an. What she kept doing was going back, because that time in Singapore she had met people. She kept going to Singapore for a month, staying with those people, working cash in hand, and then getting a visa to come stay with me for a month and just hang out and get drunk at the bars with me, my workmates, when they weren't even, because we all had different days off. They all loved her. All the guys were trying to fuck her. She probably did. And it was just getting too much. She was trying to find a chef job. She couldn't. But then she got offered jobs in different cities that I couldn't get work in because I didn't have a degree. And then we just broke up and she left. I put her on a bus and said goodbye. She went back to Guam, where she had been working while previously, and went to go on and do really well in like one of the hotels. I stayed in China. I stayed in one school for 2 years. Then I went to another one where they were just opening and they needed new teachers, and I helped them redo their whole curriculum. But the sensory was getting too much. I had a nervous breakdown. I guess it was, from a sensory overload. A full-blown fucking breakdown from sleep debt and sensory overload, where I just couldn't stop crying. It was a full-blown, just like I broke, So then I went to Wollongong, and no, sorry, that's not where I went. I went to Tassie for 4 months, and I worked on an oyster shack. Then I went to Perth for a year, and I was just so run down from everything that had happened that I didn't work for like the first 8 months. I just did house sits so I didn't have to pay anything. And I was just like, I was just not okay. It was like my rest time. But that's when I met a therapist and ended up in a relationship for like 10 months with this chick who was like, I've never known anything like it. I have never known someone so whacked out and fucked up. And this is a psychologist who apparently specializes in trauma and CPTSD. I wasn't allowed to say certain words, and I would get punished, and she would do really head fucking things. But, and all my friends were like worried and like worried about me and trying to get me to like get out of the relationship. Like they didn't want me around her. Like, and I could see why. And I was like, fuck, that was weird. So then I went out to the desert. And while I was out at the desert, I fell in love with a camel who I was trying to retire from the farm. Bonnie was me. Bonnie was me. She was the camel version of me. Bonnie's the love of my fucking life. And I had plans, and I started planning a business for animal therapy based, and I was going to call it Bonbons after her. She died before I could even get her out of there. And how it went down was so traumatizing. What happened to her, how it happened, how she was treated, how I was treated because of it. Just trying to advocate for her. And then I lost my shit at them, so they all turned on me. And it was within 7 weeks of my dad killing himself. So my father hung himself. Then they all blamed me for that. Bonnie died. I wasn't coping. My sensory went nuts. I started putting cardboard up on the windows. And that's when I was going to Wollongong Hospital, where I was in and out of hospital. I took them to the HCCC because of what happened there. You're going to see what all my hospital, doctor, psychology stuff, the HCCC stuff in the next one. The next video is going to be all about the medical side of things. This is more like the side of the trauma and like not being able to get help. And just my life and to sort of understand my journey. So Wollongong Hospital was so traumatizing and disgusting. But my somatic symptoms were really fucking kicking in. And then that's when I met the relationship that turned out to be so psycho. This was a single mom who had her own trauma from the Middle East. She had come over as a refugee because she had divorced her husband and taken the child from him, and that's just a fucking no-go over there. So her mum's Egyptian, dad's Palestinian, living in Jordan. So much fucking trauma. And but she came over here and then started milking it, playing the Muslim card on everything. I saw her be such a cunt to so many people. And then as soon as they retaliate, she'll be like, it's because I'm Muslim. And she would do some really fucked up things and then tell me, it's because it's my culture. It's because I'm a Muslim. So after 2 years of that, I'm like, I started getting trauma about the culture and the religion, which then made people think I was racist. And I was like, fuck. That's when I started getting really isolated. None of my friends wanted to hang around me when I was with her. And when I was around her, she was so different. And her friends, they weren't nice to each other. Everyone was so fake and lying. I saw her do so many fucked up things with her kid. I forced her to go to therapy and get her son into therapy. And I forced her to allocate one-on-one time with her son and spend quality time and just fucking love her kid. I got her kid brushing his teeth. I got him on a healthy diet. I got him doing his homework. I got him to stop shitting his pants whenever he didn't get his way. I got him to stop defying his mum so fucking hard. I got him to stop running. It was a very child-centered, like he owned that fucking show. I've never seen anything like it. She shoved a whole cheesecake, rammed it down his throat. I wasn't there. Trust me, I would have stopped it. They both told me about it. He had snuck in and eaten a gift that she had in the fridge for me, which was a cheesecake. I wasn't there. He'd snuck in and ate it because that's the sort of kid he was. He would just sneak around and do shit all the time and like help himself. He'd like go up to your food and like take it off with his hand and eat it. Or he'd have food out of his own. He'd spit it out onto his mum's plate. Like this was next level stuff. I stopped it all right. She actually dragged me in her car with him screaming in the back. He was screaming for his life. My legs were flying out the car, hanging on like a fucking movie. I lost my voice, screaming at her to stop. She slams on the brake after however long. And then she breaks down, cries, says she's sorry. And she goes, I'm sorry, it's my anxiety. And then we're driving back. Next thing you know, they're laughing about it like it's nothing. That I just got dragged by the car and then he was in the back. And then it just turned into like a joke but amongst them. And I've just never known anything like it. And I was in and out of Ryde Hospital. And that was where I was at right before I went to Daylesford. I had an online job because my health was next level and I was so isolated with everything that was going on. I lived 5 minutes around the corner from her, so I had an online job working from home so that I could still vomit and have diarrhea and deal with my fucking psycho girlfriend and be isolated away from all the sensory of Sydney while I figure out how to get the fuck out of there and heal. You know, I was still trying to get over Bonnie dying. I was still trying to get over my dad killing himself and being blamed. Still trying to get over the breakdown from China. Still trying to get over that psycho fucking weirdo therapist. And that was all me trying to heal from all that stuff that I was trying to escape. You know what I mean? Like, it was just never fucking ending. But I was making it work. And I started planning a business. I'd been planning a business while I was in Wollongong, while I was in Sydney, and while I was in Daylesford, up until that incident happened. And the business was rescuing traumatized animals, rehabilitating them and setting them up in a buddy program with traumatized humans and kids who don't have friends or are being abused, who just needed someone. Making profiles where you match the right animal up to the right kid. Get therapists in so you can do different packages. You can do some therapy, like animal therapy. But you can also do just some, like just a lot of trauma-based stuff, like holistic. And I'd been talking to people at the bank. I had a business plan. I had been studying animal pathology to identify animal diseases, to learn how to like take care of different animals. I was learning about animal nutrition and behaviors. And the next step was to go to a nice peaceful town and heal and rest from all of that. Get a caravan to go and like start getting experience 6 months here, 3 months there at different farms. But I couldn't just do it in a van because I had my rabbits. So that's why. Go to Daylesford, get a caravan, set it all up so that your rabbits have like a mobile home, you know, and that they have, you know, they're safe. And I just had all these plans. And that's going to be the next video. Actually, the next video is going to be the medical side of things. So this is my journey and my trauma. But the next video is going to break down, all the medical stuff to sort of show you my sickness, to show you that somatic symptoms are real, what trauma's really fucking like, and how the system is handling it, how disgusting it is, how it's actually making it worse. So that'll be the next video that you see there on the next PowerPoint.